Originally, this video was going to be about the sun, but that may have to be the next video. I was starting my series on doing detailed videos about each planet, and while I was gathering my notes about the sun, I realized I should talk about this first because the sun is so important, you guys. Everything revolves around the sun. Not surprising that it rules Leo, and if you know a Leo, while I was researching and gathering all my notes for the sun video, I realized there is something called out of bounds that I remember was not taught to me in astrology. I had to be self-taught. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I should put this video out so you can be taught about it too. It's an advanced astrology tool. This video is great for people who really want to know astrology. One, this video is really good for people who are like, I want to know more about myself and really dig deep into knowing my natal chart. Two, this video is also great for a prediction, which we are coming up close to a total solar eclipse in the sign Leo. I am filming this August 9th. The eclipse is on the 12th. We're already feeling this energy, but I'm going to use the eclipse as an example of a planet that is currently going to be out of bounds. So I thought this video is a perfect timing to, one, explain out of bounds planets, and to two, educate yourself, and to three, even throw out some predictions. Now, if you are listening to this video and it's way beyond the eclipse in 2026, that is fine. You still will get the lesson. In this video, I'm going to talk about what out of bound means. What is a declination? How can a planet be out of bounds? How do I even find it? Are all the planets able to just go out of bounds? How does this affect your natal chart? And how does this affect mundane astrology, transits, the vibe in the sky? We're gonna go into all that right now.
Oh, Danyell, Carmelita, oh, can't you see the stars align? Just come to me. Tarot and cosmos, your face inside. Danyell, Carmelita, shining bright.
So first, astrologers would normally use OOB, which we would know means out of bounds. We're no longer thinking of regular aspects, meaning we're not thinking squares, oppositions, sextiles, trines. Just get that out your mind. Take that away. We're not separating from the 0 to 30 degrees in the zodiac signs. Out of bounds is determined by declination. Declination is a measurement on how far north or south the celestial equator or celestial body is. So think more of longitude. Do you remember that word? I remember that in elementary. Longitude is side-by-side positioning. Latitude is how far north or south. In astrology, we're used to zodiacal longitude, which tells us more about the planet's position through the zodiac. Now, the declination tells us how far north or south the celestial equator the planet appears. Again, how north or south. Nothing to do with the degrees of the planets as what we know as the aspects. The sun only reaches roughly 23 degrees, 26 minutes, and 22 seconds, north or south. For example, let's say we look at Mars, because Mars is going to be a very strong example in this video, and Mars is at 20 degrees north within the sun's bounds. When Mars hits 23 degrees north, we need to start looking because now it's within the bounds. 24 degrees north, it is out of bounds. And that's why we call it out of bounds. The planet has traveled further north or south in the declination than the sun normally does. Declination, again, is a measurement. Out of bounds is a condition determined by the measurement, and that measurement is 23 degrees, 26 minutes, and 22 seconds. If it's less north or south, it's in bounds. If it's beyond that degree, higher, it is out of bounds. It could be 23 degrees and 27 seconds. That is out of bounds because 26 is the limit. Now let's talk about why declination matters. And we're going to throw up some pictures. I hope this doesn't confuse you, but if it does, it's okay. You don't have to remember it, but I just want you to be well informed. But I don't want to complicate too many things, but if it does confuse you, I just want you to know you can take it in one ear, out the other. Only the number is important, but let's just explain it anyway, okay? Let's start with the celestial equator. Imagine extending the Earth's equator outward into space. The imaginary circle around the sky is called the celestial equator. The declination measures how far north or south a planet is from the celestial equator. Zero declination is directly on this celestial equator. 15 plus degrees is north of it. 15 minus degrees is south of it. This is different from the zodiac longitude. I want you to remember that. A planet can be at 20 degrees in Cancer by longitude, while also being 24 degrees north by declination. Meaning you cannot look at a regular chart. We're not going to use that. So take everything you learned from that out of this. This is something different. It's still astrology, but it's still something different. So why does this degree of 23 degrees, 26 minutes, and 22 seconds matter? Earth is tilted at a 23.4 degree relative to its orbit around the sun. Because of that tilt, the sun appears to travel through the zodiac over the year. Its declination moves north and south. 326 is a convenient rounded value for explaining out of bounds. And this is where the seasons make the concept much easier to visualize. So when you look at a lot of videos about OOB, they talk about the equinox, the solstice, and I didn't understand that. I'm like, why are we talking about the equinox? Why are we talking about the solstice? So at the March equinox, the sun crosses the celestial equator moving north. And when the sun enters Aries, the declination is 0. Spring begins in the northern hemisphere. Then the sun keeps traveling further north in declination. June solstice, the sun reaches its maximum northern declination. The sun will enter Cancer, and the declination will be at its furthest 23 degrees and 26 minutes and 22 seconds north. Summer begins in the northern hemisphere. The sun starts moving south again. At the September equinox, the sun enters Libra, and then it will hit another 0 degrees in declination. Fall begins in the northern hemisphere. The sun continues south until December's solstice, and then it enters Capricorn, and the declination will be 23 degrees and 26 minutes to 22 seconds. You get the point. Do you get the point? I hope you get the point. And winter begins in the northern hemisphere, then it turns north again. So you can remember, Aries is 0 degrees. Cancer is the maximum of north. Libra is 0 degrees. Capricorn is the maximum of south. And then that cycle repeats. So what does that mean? That means Gemini turns into Cancer on the northern hemisphere, and Sagittarius turns into Capricorn on the southern hemisphere. Usually those are the zodiac signs that are mostly out of bounds. They're not always out of bounds if they're in that zodiac sign, but OOB territory is usually in Gemini, Cancer in the north, and Sagittarius and Capricorn in the south. But it's really important not to just limit OOB to those zodiac signs, because currently Pluto is in Aquarius as I'm filming this, and it is currently OOB, and it's in the sign Aquarius. Pluto is different. It's a little bit unusual. Pluto's orbit is tilted about 17 degrees to the ecliptic, dramatically more than the major planets. That means Pluto can travel quite far above or below the ecliptic. It's heavily associated with Gemini, Cancer, Sagittarius, and Capricorn, but when we have Pluto in the mix, things could be a little different. But we don't want to limit to those zodiac signs. And also, too, I want you to understand that the zodiac sign itself does not determine the declination. If you didn't understand from all this that I was explaining, the sun stays within its north and south limits. It can't go out of bounds. It is the sun. It is the one creating the bounds. So what you need to know is that most astrologers really focus on the longitude, the zodiac signs, and the degrees. But declination adds another layer of interpretation that the zodiac sign alone can't show. So why is it important? Because when you are dealing with planets that are OOB, beyond the sun's maximum declination, it's also symbolic, meaning these planets that are out of bounds, they're not good or bad, but they express themselves completely different. They're less conventional, they're more independent, they're hard to predict. They could be really extreme and unwilling to follow the usual rules. Longitude tells us what the planet is doing. Declination tells you how freely freely it expresses itself. Also too, when you're dealing with declination, you're also dealing with some other aspects that are completely different from what we're used to. So there is, out of bound planets, which we're discussing in this video, but also too, there's parallel aspects, there's contra-parallel aspects. I just want you to know there's other stuff. We're going to get into that. We'll just stay into the out of bounds. If you're like, that was okay, that was really cool, that you show me some pictures, I'm still confused. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just look at the degrees. 23, 26 is important. Once you understand that number and remember that number, something is above that or less than that in 23 degrees and 26. It is out of bounds, okay? If you look at the listing and it is 23, 27 or higher, it could be 24, 26 is out of bounds. If it is less south and it says S, 2340 is out of bounds, or 2330, it's out of bounds. Okay, it's one number higher, it is completely out of bounds. So that's all you have to know to make things less complicated. And again, a planet doesn't become OOB because of its zodiac sign or because of its house placement. Mars at 5 degrees in Cancer could be OOB. Mars 28 degrees of Cancer could be inbounds. Just want to clarify that we are talking about two different measurements. Not every planet goes out of bounds regularly. The planets that mostly are common to go OOB are the moon, which 50% of us in our natal chart has the moon out of bounds. That is one planet that constantly goes out of bounds from the sun. Then you have Mercury, which is about 30% of population, and then we have Venus and Mars as well. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, they can also go out of bounds, but much less frequently because of the way their orbital paths are orientated. So let's just imagine the sun driving down a highway. The sun never leaves the highway boundaries. It just stays on that road. The other planets are like cars, and they're all traveling very close to the sun. Most of the cars decide to stay within the lanes, but occasionally you have a car that could cross the guardrail or drives outside of the normal route. That is a planet that is out of bounds. It hasn't disappeared. It has simply moved beyond the sun's usual limits, symbolizing an expression of that planet that is less conventional and more independent. I hope you understand. I hope that clarified things. And if you don't want to go complicated, just remember the number. That's all you got to do. From what I learned with astrology, always question. It's like science. You're always experimenting. You're always learning. You're always questioning the science. In a nutshell, beyond just looking at the degrees, and I'll show you how to look for one. Calm down, because when I watch videos, I'm like, well, hurry up, get to the, how do we find it? Oh my gosh, you can't just look at it in chart. Chill, okay? What does OOB mean astrologically? Because astrology loves to put some symbolisms on everything. Planet operates outside of the sun normal limit, meaning that it is different. It is not within a box. And what happens when you're within a box and you want to be out of the box and have the energy of being independent, unconventional, harder to contain, doesn't automatically follow the social expectations. Extreme expressions of that planet, meaning like it's the moon, you're overly sensitive. You can be really innovative, a rule breaker, self-directed. And again, OOB doesn't necessarily mean bad. It can just manifest as something that's very exceptional or something that's like difficult to regulate. The planet has more freedom, but freedom isn't automatically constructive or destructive. You have to look at the entire chart. The moon is different because its OOB behavior is tied to its 18.6 year nodal standstill cycle. During the high declination portion of that cycle, it can repeatedly go out of bounds as a part of a monthly motion. Mercury and Venus periodically go out of bounds for relatively short periods. Jupiter is genuinely rare. Then you have Uranus and Pluto. Because they are slow, when they're out of bounds, it could be a long generational condition rather than a shorter OOB periods you see within personal planets. Pluto, for example, is in a long OOB era around the period that I'm currently doing this video. And Saturn, it's a weird one. It has exceeded the boundary. The most recent OOB occurrence was around 253 CE. So thank God for that. Who wants Saturn out of bounds? I don't want that. So now you have the overall facts of the planets being out of bounds, let's talk about each planet and what it means when it's out of bounds. So let's talk about the moon. The moon represents our emotions, our instincts, our needs, our habits, mothering, nurturing, security. And when the moon is out of bounds, there's emotional independence, unusual emotional responses, strong instincts, difficult fitting emotional expectations, unconventional family dynamics. Your mom's different. Mom wants freedom. You want freedom from your mom. Nurturing style is different. It's not normal. Or heightened need for emotional autonomy. But remember, we have to add the zodiac sign. So if the moon was in Libra, we have to have that, and what house is it in, and what other aspects does it have. You can't just stop at the OOB. Now let's talk about Mercury in OOB. Mercury is the planet of thinking, communication, learning, information, and speed. So if you have Mercury in your chart, or if you're looking at Mercury in a chart and it's out of bounds, you're talking about unconventional thinking, original ideas, thinking outside established systems, unusual communication style, intellectual independence, a refusal to accept an idea simply because everyone else accepts it. It is someone who is also could be low-key a genius, mental extremes, difficulty saying thoughts and words, or communication that ignores normal boundaries. So because the moon goes out of bounds all the time, a lot of times I won't put the dates, but I have the dates of when the Mercury goes out of bounds, just so you can know. Okay, I will put those up. I won't say all of these dates. This is when Mercury goes out of bounds. Now let's talk about Venus when it's out of bounds. Venus is the planet of love, relationships, attraction, beauty, money, values, and social behavior. Venus, when it is OOB, you're talking about unconventional relationship preferences, independent values, unique aesthetics, different ideas about beauty, less concern with social expectations, unusual relationship patterns, strong artistic individuality. This does not mean that someone cannot be in a relationship, but their relationship may be different. It may be something that we are not used to. Maybe even the social behavior is different. And also too, Venus OOB means you have your own value system. The things that you value could be very unique. Now, here are the dates that Venus is out of bounds. OOB with Mars. Mars is the planet of action, anger, assertion, sex drive, competition, courage, and motivation. OOB Mars can amplify themes of fierce independence, strong will, unconventional action, refusal to be controlled, competitive intensity, acting outside normal expectations, taking risks other people wouldn't. On the negative side, it could be very impulsive. There could be anger without sufficient restraint, unusual risk or difficulty accepting limits. On a positive side, it could be very courageous. It could be a pioneer with their behavior, independence, and willing to do what others will not. Here are the OOB Mars dates. There is a video that I watched not long ago. If I can link it down below, I will. And they talked about Pluto being out of bounds in Aquarius, and because Pluto is out of bounds in Aquarius, it's going to be more for the people. I watched it a long time ago. I will put it down below, and now that you know about OOB, this video will make a lot of sense to you. Your natal chart is the blueprint of your personality, your strengths, your challenges, and potential. An out of bounds planet adds another layer because it describes how a planet expresses its energy, not just what it represents. When a planet is out of bounds, it's operating outside the sun's normal limits. Symbolically, planet doesn't always follow the conventional plan. It may express itself in a way that feels stronger, more independent, more unconventional, or simply different from what's typically expected. Again, it doesn't make it worse or better. It just makes it very less ordinary. An out-of-bound planet can become a defining feature of someone's personality. It often describes an area in their life where a person is, like to be limited, thinks independently, breaks from convention, expresses exceptional talent or originality, or expresses life differently than those around them. That's why I love astrology, because it helps you understand yourself better, and maybe things will make more sense to your natal chart if you knew that you had a certain planet out of bounds. I did a video on how to read your natal chart, right? And let's just add this little tidbit to it. And let's just say you have a planet out of bounds. So you want to look at that zodiac sign, you want to look at the house placement, you want to look at the aspects of what that planet makes, and you want to see if it's out of bounds as well. You want to put it all together. I just want you to know too that OOB does not override the rest of the chart. You cannot say, oh, I have a Mars as OOB, therefore I'm aggressive. Instead, look at the whole picture, but it doesn't mean that you should be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay, now let's get into how can you find out if your planet is out of bounds, okay? I'm going to show you in two different ways. One way will show you the free way. Okay, so we are at astro.com, and what you're going to do is after you go to astro.com, you type in your chart like you regularly do. If you don't know how to do that, that's a separate video, but it's not hard. It is very easy. Anyway, so you see we have here, you click on PDF tables right here. After you click on that, it would give you a PDF. I find that this program is just the easiest to read. Anyway, you see what's in red. This is Donald Trump's chart, by the way. What's in red means it's out of bounds. So Mercury is out of bounds and Pluto is out of bounds on his natal chart. So now we're on a whole different website. Well, it's not a website. It's actually a software that I use, and it is called Astro Gold. Now, I would suggest this for more of the advanced astrologers, but you know, if you're really into astrology, it's your hobby, do as you please. Okay, so this is Astro Gold. You go to listings at the very top there. After you go to listings, this screen will come up. You have to make sure that it's on, you have to make sure it says declinations because it has other options like point, longitude, but you want to click on declinations and basic details. And then under the declination column, you have to look for that magic number. You have to see if it's above the magic number, 23 degrees 26. And if you see here, if we go to Donald Trump's listing, you can see that Mercury at the very bottom is 25 degrees north, so that's already higher, and Pluto is 23 degrees north, 51 degrees minutes. So those two are higher. It is not highlighted in red, but it's a little bit harder to read. It's that I use Astro Gold. I'm an astrologer, so I do pay for my app. With Astro Gold, you can also do it on the phone app as well. And if you are on the phone, you would go under the chart and you would go under reports. And then you would press basic details, and then you will also get the listing that way as well. So there are several ways to do it. The easiest way is by looking at the planet's declination. Most astrology software includes a declination table, although it's often hidden in a separate menu. And remember, you're looking at it if it's higher or lower than out of bounds. Let's talk about some celebrities, and then we'll get into how to do mundane astrology with your predictions and stuff like that. Okay, now we are going to look at Oprah. Oprah has a moon OOB, which again, a lot of people do. It's not abnormal. And again, it's often associated with extraordinary emotional intelligence, deep empathy, and an ability to connect with millions of people while discussing their personal and emotional topic. And here you have Oprah. She has a moon in Sagittarius, but if you see, it's at 24 degrees and 59 seconds. It is higher than the degree that we are looking at. So that says a lot about Oprah and her emotions, and maybe even her mom. I watched her show all the time, and I did learn a lot about Oprah. I remember one of her shows was life-changing for me personally, and it was about bra shopping. Don't look at my boobs. Anyway, but yeah, it was about bra shopping, and that could be that moon in Cancer. It was a big deal. Anyway, okay, there you have Oprah. Now here's someone who I think is like so easy to explain, and it is Elon Musk. He has a Mercury OOB, often cited as an example of unconventional thinking. You're talking about innovation, communication ideas, and challenge established norms. And you can even see that when it comes to him and his children and his family and his relationships, and even how he talks, how he did that whole situation. I even said he is an autistic. I forgot what he said he was, but you see it with Elon Musk. I feel like you don't have to explain to you about Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, if you go down his list, which I have here, it is in Cancer. But if you look at the degrees, it is 24, 26 degrees, right on the money, right? Now, someone else who has it, which I thought was very, very interesting, is Donald. Donald Trump also has it in Cancer, and it is at 25 degrees north. Okay, and we all know in his tweets and the things that he says. I mean, I thought it was because he had a sun in Gemini and it was conjunct Uranus. No, that Mercury makes him very, very different. Okay, so you have that. Let's talk about someone who has a Venus OOB, and that is Bjork. Bjork not only has a Venus, but she also has a Mercury that is out of bounds. And if you see here, it is at 25 degrees. They're both at 25 degrees, both south. And Bjork, if you know anything about her styles and her aesthetic and her music, great. I mean, it's so different, so unique. It is so out of the box. And these are the examples. Lastly, let's look at some transits, right? Let's look at something that we can predict. And this is why I really said, let me do this video before I put up the other video. We're talking about the eclipse. And the eclipse is sitting there at 20 degrees in Leo. It's connected to the South Node. I've done a video on this eclipse, so go ahead and check that out. But this is something that's different, is that the Mars in Cancer is OOB. So if we look at the listing, Mars is at 23 degrees, but if you look, it's north 41 minutes and 21 seconds. It is out of bounds. So this is a perfect real life example. Again, Mars is about action, aggression, conflict, competition, force, courage, anger, military matters, accidents, and also Mars is the blood. Mars is in charge of sharp objects. Now, when we have Cancer added to it, you're talking about home, family, homeland, security, protection, food, housing, the caregiver. It could even be the father, the public, emotional security, and maternal caretaking themes. Mars is also traditionally at fall in Cancer. It doesn't like being in Cancer. It doesn't operate very straightforward. You know anything about a crab in Cancer? It moves sideways. Cancer is protective and emotionally driven, while Mars wants to act and confront and separate. Now let's add the OOB, who's extremely protective. This is someone whose actions is driven strongly by emotion, fear, loyalty, or security. Cancer also represents the past. You're fighting for your past, but you're overly doing it. You're very defensive. You're escalating into action. This is some unconventional or unexpected actions involving home, family, properties, homeland, and security. Anger that has been contained and then crosses a boundary. I want to show this as an example, and I did a short form video on this, like a TikTok or whatever on this, and we have Perez Hilton. This is a prime example of the eclipse in Leo. You have someone who is representing a lot of celebrities. You know, he was known for really being in discussing celebrities. That is that Leo energy. Well, that is of the past, right? He is no longer big. People are really not celebrity hungry anymore. That could make him have some form of depression, right? Now, if you guys are familiar, he went on a TikTok live, and some things involving blood and harming himself with a sharp object. It was very graphic. It was very, I would say he was acting in any way, but the scene was like dramatic. People have compared it, a movie scene, to Carrie. I have not seen it. I refuse to see it, but this is just a prime example of how that Mars is overly acting. They were even saying the sharp object wasn't even sharp. It was like a kitchen, a kitchen instrument, apply butter to. I'm trying not to say all the words. That means that he had to be really harsh with the way he was doing things. Also, too, while he was on live, he kept saying this is for his kids. While he was on live, the other people on the live kept saying, "Where is your mother?" which is very a Cancer theme as well, too. But the out of bounds things is him mentioning this while doing this and being very bloody. That is an example of the Mars out of bounds, but I want you to know this also could represent a lot of themes dealing with war at home. It could be dealing with themes of pride, leadership, visibility, authority, recognition, children, entertainment, creativity. And then there is a releasing of something and a new beginning, because it's also, somewhat of a new moon, a total eclipse. But then that Mars OOB adds an extra layer. Mars is acting up, and we have no idea how that's going to operate. There could be more anger, more action. The problem with the eclipses is that, it doesn't have to be that day, but it could be around that time for sure. Okay. People could be acting more extra. They could be more courageous than ever. Unusual leadership, strong emotional reactions, rule breaking or rule breakers, bold decisions, increased activism, independent action. So that is what we have for this video of OOB. This is a bonus video that is connected to my sun video because the sun is such an important planet to discuss. Anyway, so that is what we have. If you guys loved all this, if you can please put an emoji down below. Also, if you're like, I want more, you've explained it to me, I love this, I'm hooked, why don't you join my Substack? It is completely free. I have so many information. I'm also a conspiracy theorist. So I just switched over my website and going to my Substack, and right now everything's free. So go ahead and look at all the information completely free to you. All right, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye bye.